You were born knowing how to do this. Every child walks around in a state that spiritual teachers spend decades trying to describe. And you had it before you could tie your shoes. Somewhere between your first day of school and your first real disappointment, something got trained out of you. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly what was lost and how to get it back. Watch a 3-year-old decide they want something. There's no internal debate, no weighing of probabilities, no quiet voice cataloging all the reasons it might fail. They declare it with their whole body. I'm a dinosaur. And for the next 45 minutes, they are. Their imagination and their identity occupy the same space, no gap between wanting and believing. That gap is something you learned later. Neville Goddard called this living in the end. He taught that the feeling of the wish fulfilled, held with genuine conviction, is the engine of all manifestation. Children do this without instruction. A child playing house has already moved in. A child pretending to fly has already left the ground. The state comes first, the evidence is irrelevant, and things show up in their lives with a speed that adults find almost unsettling. So what changes? The answer sits inside a process so gradual you never noticed it happening. Around age 5 or 6, something shifts. You start receiving what Goddard would call the beliefs of Caesar, the assumptions of the external world. A teacher corrects you. A parent says, "We can't afford that." A classmate laughs at your drawing. Each moment is small, ordinary even. But each one deposits a thin layer of sediment over your natural state. One layer says your desires need to be realistic. Another says you should check with reality before you commit to a feeling. A third says that wanting too much makes you selfish. By the time you're 12, the sediment is thick enough to feel like bedrock. You've confused the weight of conditioning with the weight of truth. The Kybalion describes a principle that maps perfectly onto this process. The principle of mentalism. All is mind. The universe is mental. A child operates from this principle instinctively. Their inner world is the world. When they decide something is true, their entire experience reorganizes around that decision. They haven't yet learned to split consciousness into what I want and what's actually happening. That split is the core wound of adult manifestation. Think about the last time you affirmed something you wanted. Maybe you sat with your eyes closed and repeated a phrase. I am abundant. I am worthy. I am healthy. And even as the words formed, a second voice, quieter, older, more practiced, was running counter-narration. Are you, though? Look at your bank account. Look at your track record. That second voice feels like wisdom, like maturity, like the responsible adult doing their due diligence. That voice is the sediment talking. A child has one voice, one channel. When they assume a state, every cell cooperates. There's no internal committee meeting, no risk assessment. The assumption moves through them like water through an open pipe. Adults, by contrast, have spent years installing valves, filters, and shut-off switches between their desire and their belief. Then they wonder why the flow has slowed to a drip. Here's where it gets specific. The socialization process installs 3 distinct filters that children don't have. The first is the filter of evidence. Adults have been trained to believe only what they can see. You need proof before you'll commit to a feeling. A child needs nothing. They believe first, and proof arranges itself around the belief. Goddard was explicit about this. Evidence follows assumption, never the other way around. The moment you reverse that order, you've locked yourself out of the creative process. You're standing at the door waiting for it to open before you'll reach for the handle. The second filter is the opinions of others. A child's sense of self is internally generated. They decide who they are and broadcast it without checking whether the audience agrees. Adults have learned to crowdsource their identity. You look at how people treat you, what they expect from you, and you build your self-concept from the outside in. Your assumptions about yourself become a collaborative document that everyone else has editing access to. Every limiting belief someone projected onto you, you're the shy one, you're bad with money, people like us don't do that, got pasted into your identity without your conscious permission. The third filter is the most damaging and the hardest to see. It's the filter of time. Children live in an eternal now. When a child assumes they're a superhero in this moment. The fulfillment is immediate because the feeling is immediate. Adults have been taught that manifestation requires waiting, that good things take time. That you plant a seed and then you suffer patiently through a long winter before anything grows. This belief in delay is itself a delay. You've built a waiting room between your assumption and your reality, then furnished it so completely that you've mistaken it for home. Goddard addressed this directly. He said the time it takes for a desire to manifest is directly proportional to the naturalness of the feeling. A child feels their desire as natural because they haven't been trained to feel it as extraordinary. You feel your desire as a stretch, a reach, something slightly beyond who you currently are. That slight distance is the entire problem. So how do you dismantle filters that have been building for decades? The work is specific, and it requires patience with yourself. Start with the evidence filter. Practice assuming a state before any evidence supports it. Choose something small. Decide that you're the kind of person who always finds good parking spots, who receives unexpected compliments at the right time. Hold that assumption the way a child holds a game. With full commitment and zero need for external confirmation, the confirmation will come. But you have to stop checking the mailbox every 5 minutes. Checking is doubt wearing a polite mask. For the opinions filter, begin auditing whose voice is actually speaking when you tell yourself what's possible. When you think, I could never do that, whose tone is that? Whose cadence? You'll often find it belongs to a specific person from a specific moment. A teacher, a parent, an older sibling who said it casually over dinner 20 years ago. That voice has been squatting in your consciousness, paying no rent, making all the rules. Eviction requires a new dominant assumption about yourself, repeated with enough consistency that it drowns out the old tenant. The time filter requires the deepest work. You have to practice collapsing the distance between desire and fulfillment in your imagination. When you enter the state of the wish fulfilled, you can't place it in the future. The future is where unfulfilled desires live. Fulfillment only exists in the present tense. When Goddard said to live in the end, he meant now. Feel it now. Walk through your day as the person who already has it. The child doesn't imagine being a superhero tomorrow. The cape is on right now. There's a reasonable objection here, and it deserves a real answer. If this process is so natural, why does reconnecting with it feel so difficult? Why can't you just decide to believe like a child again? Because you're working against years of reinforced neural and emotional patterns. Every time you checked reality and adjusted your belief downward, you strengthened the habit of conditional believing. Every time you waited for proof before committing to a feeling, you deepened the groove. The difficulty is real, but the difficulty is also the sediment. Doing what sediment does, making itself feel permanent. Sediment erodes. It just takes a current strong enough to move it, applied consistently enough to carve a new channel. The current is your mental diet. Every thought you entertain about yourself is either reinforcing the old filters or dissolving them. There is no neutral thought. Goddard was relentless about this. He compared the mind to a garden. Every assumption is a seed, and you're planting something whether you're paying attention or not. A child's garden grows wild and abundant because they plant without hesitation and without pulling up the seeds to check if they're growing. You've spent years pulling up seeds, examining them under a microscope, asking other people whether they think this particular seed has potential. Stop pulling up seeds. The child you were didn't lose this ability. The ability got buried under agreements you made with a world that operates on entirely different rules than the ones Goddard taught. The world says, see it, then believe it. The law says, believe it, then see it. The world says, be realistic. The law says, your imagination is the only reality that generates. The world says, wait your turn. The law says the feeling of having it now is the only timeline that matters. You once knew all of this without language. You operated from it every single day. The knowing is still in you, underneath the filters, underneath the sediment, underneath every voice that told you to be reasonable. Your work now is to stop being reasonable long enough to remember what you already knew before anyone taught you to forget it. The child didn't have a technique, the child had a state, and the state is still available to you. The moment you stop asking for permission to enter it,